How's it going? My name is Daryl. Welcome back to this channel. In the previous lessons, we just learned how to create the candlestick chart, and we learned how to present these informations and also these informations. And what we're going to do in these lessons is to focus on the volume, MACD, and RSI. That is the remaining support. And then after that, after these lessons, we will then cover the indicator and also strategies inside these main charts. Go ahead and get started. Once again, we will put the functions for plotting the volume, MACD, and RSI inside these animate functions. And just like what I mentioned before, this will help me to keep looping the data at the back end and continuous to show the data within the plot. So there are a few things that I would like to do. The first is to plot the volume. What I'm going to do is to pass 3 arguments into this plot volume functions that includes the axis, that is the where we would like to present the data, and also the data informations, as well as the latest, that is the last accumulated volume. And so 3 parameters, the axis, that is the, let me show you, that is the these volume plots, that is the axis 2, and then we pass in the data frame and also the latest volume, which is what I'm going to show it over here, the latest volume. So now we can then create the function. So volume, 3 things, the axis, the data, and also the latest volume. Here you can see the bar indeed has 2 colors. If the candlestick is going up, that is a green color, then the bar will also be in green color. So on the other hand, if the bar is going down, that is red in colors, then we will also present it into red in color. So in that case, we need to define the positive and negative bar. Therefore, we need to calculate and assign the booleans. So that is the open price minus the closing price, and also the open price minus for the closing price. Of course, if that is less than 0, that means the closing price is higher than the open price. In that case, that is a positive bar. On the other hand, if the open price is higher than the closing price, in that case, that is a negative bar. So I will just assign a negative booleans into that. In that case, we will use these positive and negative in the bar for each of the bar. So we will just plot out the positive bar first, and then of course the data that we are talking about is the volume difference. If you refer it back to the open, high, low, close, you can see that we indeed calculate the volume difference. Oh, sorry, not this one. In the process data inside these functions, here we go, and we indeed calculate the difference between the volume for each of the times interval. So in that case, I will also just check it if that is a positive. So now we have the x-axis and also the x-axis, that is the value, I mean. And in that case, I will just assign a, because that is a positive, I will assign green color to it. And then the width for this bar will be 0.8. That will be, it's actually the same as the size for the candlestick chart bar. And then align it within the center. And now if I move it on for the negative, okay, this is here we have a typo over here. And then if I move it on for the negative, this is for the negative index, and with the value, and then I will just return a red color to it. And if we go back to this web page, this is the red color, and then this is the green color that I want to assign it to. And now we have the bar chart. Because I want to leave some space at the very top, I do not want it to just shoot it to the head, shoot it to these spines, or should it overshoot to the border. So in that case, I will just some value for the y-axis, for the y limit. So in my case, I will just assign a maximum values, I mean in terms of the bar, and then plus 1 standard deviations. So I need to get the maximum value from this volume difference. And so that's the maximum value. And then I need to get the standard deviations. And I will set the limit. However, sometimes we cannot find the maximum value or the standard deviations, or sometimes the maximum value is not equals to 0. So we need to set up some conditions. So the first conditions is that if we do not find any maximum, or we cannot find any standard deviations value. And then in that case, on the other hand, if that's the y-max is not equals to 0. So in that case, I will then set a limit to it. And finally, I would like to display the volume over here. So in that case, I will just use transit axis, the coordinates. So that is 0.01 at the top left corner. So that is 0.95 that I'm going to provide. And then first, I'm going to give its volumes. And then I want to make sure that the format is what I want. So I will just assign a format to this volume. And I will just change the volumes into an integer. And this format is just I add a commas to that. So over here, you can see for every thousands, there's a comma over here. So just set formats to it, and then transform just like what we did before. That is the axis, axis, and then the color, that is dark gray, sorry, light gray, and then font, and then the font size equals to 10, the font weight equals to bold, and then finally that is the horizontal and vertical alignment. Just keep it on the top left. And here we have some typo. I think we have one, yeah. Let me just copy, let me just make sure that it's the same. Okay, excellent. Now we have this plot volume. So if I run this, and once again, let me save the picture for you. Oops, and the font, let me stop it. The font weight, there's a typo. Yep, that should be the font weight, W-I-G-H-T. And let me rerun it again. Let me save the picture. And if I bring it up, the picture, now you can see we have different color for the bar that represents whether or not it's going up or going down. And then also we have the latest volumes, that is accumulated volume, showing over here. Excellent. Now we can move on to the next chart, that is the MACD. So the next part would be the MACD. So that is stuff, plots, MACD. For this one, we will just pass along two arguments. One is the axis, that means which subplot that you would like to plot it into, and the other one is the data frame that contains the data to allow us to, of course, calculate the MACD. Now for this one, this is axis 3, and then data. Just put it back into this animate under the sections for the MACD. And now we can create the MACD. First things that we need to do is to calculate the MACD, and with the use of technical analysis functions or framework, and use the closing price to calculate the MACD. And then just in case if there's NA or no data, please just fill it in with 0. I wanted to show you the head to let you know what happens in up to the row 13.4. So in that case, I will just pick it out first. Here, the first column is the MACD, and then the last column is the signal line. And then in between, that is the difference between the MACD and signal lines, that is the histogram. And now you can see that the MACD happens after 25 row. In that case, it's mainly because when we calculate the MACD, we need to have 26 periods EMA and then minus the 12 periods EMAs to calculate that MACD. Therefore, after 25, we will get some value. And then for the signal line, that is the 9 periods of these MACD. So in that case, we need to have 9 rows or 9 values to calculate these values. And then these values, the histogram is that only is the between is the values between the MACD and also the signal line. However, you could imagine that when we do not have any value at the very beginnings, in that case, that might cause some error when we are calculating this MACD. We are not able, that will be a none type, so we are not able to fill in the any zeros for these NAN. So in that case, we need to check the length of the data. So to make sure that it has enough closing data to calculate the MACD and also the signal line, that will allow us to fill in the NAN. And so that is the 26 plus the line data, sorry, 25 plus the line data. And then that we just need to make sure that the length for this closing data is enough for us to calculate the MACD. And once that is enough, and then we will then calculate the MACD. And then we will concat this MACD with the data. And then concat column by column, and then we index the data. So we are going to plot the line, and first thing first, let's plot the MACD. And to think, we will check whether or not this value is equals to 0, and that is the MACD. So whether or not that is equals to 0, because at the very beginnings we fill the NAN with 0. So sorry, that should be data, and that should be data. So if that is the case, that is equals to 0, what we're going to do is to set the alpha. But let me finish this thing first. If that is equals to 0, we will name it as the MACD, but then we will just set the alpha equals to 0. That means we are not going to, I will just make it transparent, so you're not going to see it, but at the back end, it actually plots out the data. On the other hand, if the value that is not equals to 0, in that case, we will just give it a color instead of set the alpha equals to 0. So in this case, we will just make it the color a right color. And Yep, here we go. So that is for the MACD line. So similarly, we can do it with the signal line, and that is what we need to do is to add a S over here, S over here, S over here, and then the color for these terms we will just change it to orange. So now we have the plot. One is the right line and the other is the orange line, and you can see at the very beginning everything is set as a transparent. So in that case the outwards is equals to 0, and inside here you can see that there's also a bar chart, and when it's going up, when it's positive, then the bar chart is green, and when the when it's going down, when it's in the negative side, and then the bar chart will be in red. So in that case, we will then again assign a positive and negative for the bar chart, and for these terms, we will simply to check the histogram. That is H over here. We'll simply to check if the histogram is larger than 0 or less than 0 to set the booleans for this positive and negative, so that we can use these positive and negative booleans into our bar chart because they are very similar to the volume. So what I'm going to do is to just copy and paste things over here, but of course I will just change it to the MACD histogram. Excellent. And finally, I will also would like to put a text over here, and you can see this is MACD 12, 26 and line. So I would like to put a text on the top left corner, but for these times I will check if there's any value before I show the string, and just in case if that is equals to 0, I'm not going to plot the result, but if there's some if there's some value in the MACD, it will then just show the text, and everything is similar to the volume bar chart, except that I would like to replace the strings into the MACD 1226 line to make sure we know what kind of values that we are using for this MACD. And now if I run the program, and let me save the graph, and if I bring up the graph, you will see that we just plot out the MACD, and there's one is the MACD line that is in white color, and the second one is the signal line, and also we have the bar chart in 2 different color, and lastly we also just show the text for the MACD technical analysis that we are using. And finally, we can plot our SI. Again, we'll just give just to provide 2 arguments. One is that which subplot that you would like to plot the RSI, and then what kind of data or data frames that you are going to use to plot the RSI. So let's put it back into the animate functions under the subplot RSI, and that is for the active for and the data. For this one, I would like to provide the x-axis for x-axis label, y-axis label for it. So I would like to provide the peak with 30 and 70, because that will just enter the overbought shown or the oversold zone. So here you can see we have the two value provided over here. So I just set the two value over here, and then if I go back to the plot our, so the first things that I want to do is to set the y limit, and this one that will just be between 0 to 100, because it seldom reach, I think it's never it never reached the 0 or 100. So in that case, so what I'm going to do is just set it as 0 to 100, and then there are three lines that I would like to plot, three horizontal line, I should say. So here you can see that there are three horizontal line. One is at 70, one is at 50. Let me show you. One is at 70 and one is 50, and then the last one is 30. So in that case, there will be three line, three horizontal line. The first one is 30, the second one is 50, and then the last one is 70. And then the line style, just a solid line, color. The bottom one is the white, and then the line width is equals to 0.5. And again, for the first one, sorry, for the, let me just get back here. So for the first one, that is wet, and then for the last one, that is for the bottom one, that is green. So 30 equals with the green, and then 70 with the wet. So in that case, so 70, oh sorry, 30 goes to green, and then 70 is equals to wet. So now for this one in the middle, against the for this one, the color I am using white for this one. However, I just make it a bit transparent. So I set the alpha equals to 0. And then we need to create the RSI line, and for this times we will simply use the format for the MACD, but of course I will just change the values to the RSI. This is for the RSI, and so when the values that is equals to 0, I will just set the alpha equals to 0, and I think I don't have any label for this, and then the line width, oh that is okay, because for this one the alpha is set equals to 0, and then the color, if I remember it correctly, that is blue. Yep. Let me show you the color. Yep, here we go. That's blue. And then for this one, I will just use a blue color and no label. And the width is equals to 1.5. Just make sure I type everything correctly. Yep, here we go. When we process the data, remember that we will set the RSI equals to 0 with the when we have the NAM values, because this is a RSI 14. So in that case, in the 13th or value before 14, there's no value. So in that case, I will just set it as a 0. Fill it with 0. And then in that case, if the value is equals to 0 over here, I will just set the alpha equals to 0. In that case, it's not going to show anything. On the other hand, if the value is not equals to 0, in that case, I will just show a blue line with the line width equals to 1.5. Here, there's a trick, because I want to make sure that these time frame are aligned for all these chart. That includes the main plots, the subplots, and the MACD. And here you can see that but sometimes they are not aligned because the plots are different. So for the first one, the candlestick is like a bar chart, and we also have some line charts. And then in the second one, that is a bar chart, and the third one is also a bar chart. And of course, with the line charts inside as well. So in that case, I will just create a bar chart for these RSI at the back end. But here you cannot see it, because what I'm going to do is to set the alpha equals to 0. So we cannot see it, but we can then make sure that these grids are aligned throughout the entire date or throughout the entire sections. So that is the trick that we do over here. So at the back end, we will create a bar chart. And then the bar chart is with the, again, with the index, data RSI, and color, whatever, with whatever center. But remember, the most important thing is that to set it alpha equals to 0. So that is the way that we can make sure that all the x-axis are aligned throughout the entire graph. So the last things that I would like to do is to plot out the RSI value. You can see we have the, let me erase that. We have the RSI value, that is the latest value. So in that case, I will just copy these functions over here and put it over here. And of course, for this one, we are checking the link to see whether there's any values for this RSI, and then again put it on the top left hand corner. And then of course what we're going to do is to provide it a value, and that is RSI 14, and then I will just provide a value for this, and we just run it off RSI, and then we would like to get the last value. So run it off with 2 digits. So run it all with 2 decimal place, and here once again we'll use the back coordinates, top left. Cool. So now let's run the programs. And let me save the result and give you to take a look. And let me show you the result. So here we go. We just plot the RSI, and then with the 3 horizontal line, and also the latest RSI values over here. And one last thing that I would like to do in these lessons is to, let me bring it up back, is to also create these x-axis. So what I'm going to do is to create a functions for the x-axis times, and I also want 2 arguments. The first is which support that you would like to assign this x-axis into, and then the next thing is that I will also need to provide the time frame. I mean the data frame. So in that case, once again, we will just put these functions in the RSI graph, and here you can see the axis is the bottom one, that is the axis 4, and then provide the data frame. And finally, we can then create the functions for it. In previous lessons, we already covered it, so I'm not going to repeat myself. Let's go through it quickly. So first of all, we need to create a date, xdate list, and then we will need to create this myDate functions, and finally use this set major formatter and put that functions, the myDate function, inside this formatter. And then if I run this, and let me bring that up, and now you can see we have the x-axis with the time. So in these lessons, we just plot all these subplots and also plot out the x-axis. And in the next lessons, what we are going to do is to play around with these indicator and also the strategies. So see you in the next videos. Bye bye.